Hi, everybody. I'm Brittany Lewis with Forbes Breaking News. Joining me now is Congressman Anthony D'Esposito. Congressman, thanks for coming back on.
Thanks for having me.
Last week, there was a historic debate between a past and current president, Donald Trump, and Joe Biden. So let's dive right in. What are some of your takeaways?
You mentioned that it was a historic debate, and I think that Joe Biden has one of the things that he's done well is he has broken records and made history, but none of it is something that he probably should be proud of. I mean, he's set records at our southern border, creating a disaster that we've seen. And yeah, Thursday night was historic. It was probably one of the worst debate performances that we've seen, especially from a sitting president, perhaps ever. What I think was clear is that Joe Biden is just not prepared to run this country and be our commander in chief. And I think what's scary is that many of the things that we're seeing, many of the issues that are plaguing this country, the things that when I go out into my district here on Long Island and talk to neighbors, the things that they're talking about most around the kitchen table, Joe Biden is just not addressing. And it was somewhat eerie in that when you watch that debate, I mean, you could legitimately watch that debate on mute, and Joe Biden still lost it. And many of the things that were negotiated in order to put that debate forward, the time of day, the fact that there was nobody in the audience, obviously the network that was running it, the fact that there was a split screen. I mean, I think that split screen caused Joe Biden more harm than some of the answers that he left us with did. So I just think all in all, the debate was a disaster. You can see from Democrats the next morning on Capitol Hill that they really didn't have an answer when asked, do you think Joe Biden is prepared to run this country, to be our commander in chief? Some of them just refused to answer. And when it comes to what we're seeing on a global scale, when we talk about China, when we talk about Iran, when we talk about Russia, when we talk about our adversaries, there is no question that it wasn't just the American people watching that debate. Our adversaries were as well. And when we talk about, the time when, at a time when Reagan, when he always talked about, we achieve peace through strength. We are not achieving peace through strength because Joe Biden is not showing that strength.
I want to get to the international response in a moment, but first, both Republicans and Democrats alike that I've talked to said the debate was disastrous for President Biden, said it was, in some words, devastating. What have been your conversations with other lawmakers, Republicans and Democrats included, if you've spoken with them since Thursday?
So, listen, the Democrats, I think, they go unnamed, but yeah, they are concerned. I mean, listen, in places like New York, where the Democrats are putting so many resources into trying to take back these seats, it's just not going to happen. I mean, the New Yorkers that are now running as incumbents in these tough Biden districts have created, they've made it clear to the people that put them in the seat that they're willing to work across the aisle, that they're willing to work hard, that they're willing to put the communities that sent them there first before everyone else. And that is, we can tell that our opponents are concerned. I mean, my opponent, for example, she's very quick on the tweets when it's something about Donald Trump or something about the Republican Party, but she's been eerily silent since Thursday evening, not mentioning a word about the debate, not saying that President Biden did a good job, not saying that it was a disaster. She's saying nothing, and I think the lack of anything from our opposition speaks volumes, because they know that debate was a complete disaster. They know that the Democratic base is not enthusiastic. They will not come out to vote to support Joe Biden. And in districts like mine, where Joe Biden won by 16 and a half points in 2020, this is the most Biden district that is held by any Republican in the United States of America. Joe Biden won it by 16 and a half points. Prior to the debate, we had a poll that was done by a national pollster, John McLaughlin, who actually polls for the president. He polls for Prime Minister Netanyahu. He polls for me and many other members of Congress. President Trump is up 7.5 points. So he went from a 16.5 point deficit to being up by 7.5. I am up by even more than that. And again, this is a district that the Democrats believe is their first and easy target. It shouldn't be their first target, and it's definitely not easy because we are going to win again.
President Biden, as you've said, as others have indicated, had a bad debate night, and some have chalked it up to even more than that. He was incoherent at some points. He trailed off a decent amount during that debate. And strategists and political scientists I've talked to have said there wasn't a winner in that debate. Instead, President Biden lost. Donald Trump reportedly repeated over 30 falsehoods on things ranging from abortion, the economy, January 6th, other topics in between. So when you look at this debate as a whole, what do you think this indicates to both our friends and enemies abroad?
I think that, like I said, the view from our enemies abroad, specifically right now to who our commander in chief is, it makes the country look weak. And I think that this was an opportunity for President Trump to really speak to the American people, because let's be honest, that debate on Thursday night, the people who are watching it, who are political animals, who pay attention, who are into the everyday what happens on Capitol Hill and beyond, they know who they're voting for. They know whether they're supporting Donald Trump or Joe Biden or neither. But I think that the debate was an opportunity, because I think we would both agree, and I'm sure many of your listeners agree, that that debate was watched by hundreds of millions of people, because it has now become some sort of almost like a reality series. People are watching it that have never been interested in government and politics before. And that was an opportunity to tell those people why we are different, why the Republicans are better at government, why Joe Biden has destroyed parts of our country over the last 3.5 years, and really talk about, like I mentioned a few minutes ago, the things that are discussed most about amongst people around their kitchen table. Thursday night was a perfect opportunity to look to the American people and those who are not really interested in government and politics and say, listen, I'm going to break this down very simply. In a couple of days, you're going to be celebrating the 4th of July. You're going to be going to barbecues. You're going to be hosting family and friends at your house. When I was president, it cost this much. With Joe Biden as president, it's costing this much. But instead, we were talking about a golf handicap. We were talking about things that really don't matter to the American people. And yes, I think there was opportunities that were missed when Joe Biden, who was trailing off, and even President Trump said, I'm not sure what he said, and I'm not sure he knows what he said. But I mean, President Biden lied to the American people and said that under his tenure, nobody in the military has died, when he forgot that, there was a time when we would, not only through the botched withdrawal of Afghanistan, I mean, he's been criticized for standing on a tarmac when the bodies of heroes were processed past him, and he was looking at his watch. I mean, so either he forgets, either he's confused, or he just doesn't care. But nonetheless, it is not a good look for the American people.
To your point about more passive voters tuning in, that was the case, at least in my circles. And I got many texts from Democratic voters saying, hey, I didn't like this alarmed me as a Democrat. And if I didn't know Donald Trump the past 4 years of him as president between 2017 and 2021, I would think he's more presidential right now. So is President Biden, how we saw him on Thursday, is that a one-off, or is that congruous with how you see him when you're working more closely with him as a lawmaker?
I think it's what we've seen. I think it's a pattern. Obviously, some days I think President Biden is sharp and on point. It's rare. But for the majority of the time, when you see him speak to the press, I mean, it's one of the reasons as to why he avoids talking to the press. Sometimes he goes days and weeks without actually having a conversation with the press as the commander in chief of the United States of America. President Trump was perceived by the American people as presidential because right now he certainly is acting presidential. He understands what this country is facing. He realizes that under the failed leadership of Joe Biden, we've seen over 10 million people come into this country illegally. We've seen over 2 million people that are known gotaways. We know that they crossed the southern border. We don't know where they are, what they're doing, or who they're associating with, in addition to the millions more who have just come across and we legitimately have no idea where they are, what they're doing, or who they're associating with. There is no question that because of President Biden's failed policies, his failed leadership, this country is less safe. I speak to law enforcement professionals every single day. I'm a member of the House Homeland Security Committee where we receive briefings. And there is no question, it is not if we will have another terrorist attack, it's when we will have another terrorist attack. Just a couple of weeks ago, there were people that had ISIS ties that were, they were interrupted by the agencies, law enforcement agencies, because they came across our southern border. Just a couple of days ago, the chief of detectives in the NYPD, who's dealing with this every single day because of the migrants that are making their home in New York City. I mean, we've had just 2 weeks ago, you had a 13-year-old that was raped by an illegal migrant in Queens. You've had cops that were shot at by illegal migrants. We now have Venezuelan gangs who are smuggling illegal firearms into migrant shelters through Uber Eats and delivery services. I mean, they are putting videos out on social media, recruiting new members of these dangerous Venezuelan gangs. And these are all individuals who are coming across our border illegally. So President Trump is presidential because he understands that. And when he was president, we didn't have the issues that we're facing now. Am I saying that the country was perfect? Absolutely not. But over the last 3.5 years, Joe Biden has legitimately destroyed so many aspects of this beautiful country. People feel less safe because they are less safe. Our partners, or our adversaries, I should say, across the globe are looking at us as weak, and they're taking advantage of us. I mean, under President Trump, there is no way that we would have allowed a Chinese spy balloon to come across the entire United States of America before it was taken down. It just wouldn't happen. I believe that we wouldn't have seen the attacks in Israel from Hamas and obviously the proxies of Iran. That would have never happened under the leadership of President Trump. We are looked at as weak. We hear it every single day. We see it by the decisions that our adversaries are making.
The debate on Thursday opened a Pandora's box of calls for President Biden to step aside from the 2024 race from both Republicans and Democrats. Do you think he should step aside?
I don't think that there's a chance that Joe Biden is going to step aside from this race. Since the 118th Congress began in January, House Republicans have made it very clear that we're looking to hold those accountable who have violated the public trust. And one of those people that we held accountable was one of our own in George Santos, where I led the effort to make sure that he was removed from Congress because he failed the American people. And we've done it with Secretary Mayorkas, and we're doing it with the Biden crime family. And there is very few families that have been in politics and government who have monetized their power like the Biden family has. And there is no way that Joe Biden, that Jill Biden, or their inner circle is going to allow President Biden, to not be on that ballot in November.
I know you think he won't step down, but you said earlier that he's not prepared to be commander-in-chief. So do you think he should?
I don't think that what we saw on Thursday night, if that is, I don't spend every day with President Biden. If that is how he is every single day, then we really, as the American people, as his cabinet, really, and as lawmakers on Capitol Hill, need to really question as to whether Joe Biden is prepared to lead this country. But again, I don't see that happening, and I don't see his family advising him that he should step aside and allow the Democrats to put somebody else in place. They have way too much power. They've monetized it more than most have throughout the history of this country, and I don't see it stopping anytime soon.
After the debate, your colleague, Congressman Chip Roy, called on Vice President Kamala Harris to invoke the 25th Amendment. Is that something you support?
I mean, I know that there's legislation that Chip is going to be presenting next week when we get back on Capitol Hill. It's something that I'll read through. Again, I think that while I may or may not support it, I haven't read it yet. I think what's clear is that it won't go anywhere because the Senate won't do anything with it. But I think there is no question after Thursday night, and as you mentioned a few minutes ago, you had friends that had called you and said that they don't normally watch these things, but they were paying attention. And there is no question that if that is the situation, if that is the way that Joe Biden is governing each and every day, we have a serious problem. And just to add to that, I think that what we saw on Thursday night is like I mentioned a few moments ago. I think there were a lot of decided voters who were watching that, but there are also people who are undecided, and I'm not really sure where they sway. But I think that they will know and see that President Trump was the one that was far better off in leading this country. And I think what Thursday night also did to the Democrats, which I believe is devastating throughout this country, and especially in places like New York. I mean, when President Trump tells you that we have a chance to win New York, that New York is in play, that he is, quote, going to make a huge push in New York, Thursday is devastating to Joe Biden, because in tremendous minority pockets, in places like the five boroughs, in places like my district in Hempstead, Uniondale, Roosevelt, places that are majority minority, they feel taken for granted as well. Those communities are the ones that are seeing the spikes in violence. Those are the ones that are being taken for granted by the Biden administration. And quite frankly, there is zero enthusiasm to come out and vote for President Biden.
Do you think, because New York is historically blue, do you think it could actually be in play this November?
I do. I firmly believe that New York is in play. I think in 2022, you had people like myself, like Mark Molinaro, like Nick LaLota, Andrew Garbarino, Mike Lawler, Brandon Williams, who ran in these very tough seats in New York. And we were able to win. We delivered wins in Biden's seats that people thought was impossible. I mean, I remember in 2022 when I said I was running for Congress in a district that Joe Biden won by 16 and a half points. I'm not even sure my mom thought it was able to win, but we did, because we were on the right side of every issue, and we are able to communicate with voters. And I didn't win just because I appealed to Republican conservatives. I won, and I won previous elections. My last reelection to the Hempstead Town Board, again in a Democratic district, I won with 70% of the vote. I didn't win, and I didn't win in 2022 because I only appealed to the conservative Republicans. It's because I was able to appeal, and they trusted me, Democrats, independents, and that's what election is all about. And our opposition on the Democratic side, they're only playing to themselves. That's it. They don't appeal to the everyday New Yorker, the everyday Long Islander, and the everyday American.
Congressman D'Esposito, we have to leave it there, but thank you again for your time. I always appreciate our conversations.
Thank you. Have a great one.